please enjoy this ad-free episode as part of our Academic Integrity series sponsored by Pangram Labs, the world's leading AI detection tool. Try it out at pangram.com. That's pangram.com.
Welcome back, everybody. It's your time to ed up on the Ed Up Experience podcast, where we make education your business. This is Elvin Freitas, co-founder of the Ed Up Experience, and I am back with you again on another episode of our awesome academic integrity series with my co-host, who is the most. He is Bradley Emmy. He is CTO at Pangram Labs. Bradley, how you doing?
I'm doing great, Elvin. How about you?
Fantastic. I think this is number 4 for you, man.
It is.
Yeah,
it's been great. Honestly, our guests have been amazing.
Yeah.
Really interesting how people just have such different perspectives on academic integrity, like based on who they are, their institution type. So it's really interesting just to get a picture of the whole landscape.
Oh, yeah, absolutely. And speaking of landscape, we got someone from a pretty interesting landscape that's going to come on. Let's get him in right now. His name is Jake Kasper, and he is the Assistant Director for the Office of Student Support and Accountability at Michigan State University. Jake, how you doing?
Good. How about you? Thanks for having me on.
We're fantastic. We're doing well. Thanks for being here. So we like to jump right on in. So, of course, we're asking everyone, first question is, what do you do and how do you do it?
Sure. I am the Assistant Director at MSU for the Office of Student Support and Accountability, like you already said. My main function in the office is to oversee the academic integrity process at Michigan State for all the undergraduate students. So when we manage that is if there's any reports or issues, academic dishonesty reports that come in for misconduct in coursework, faculty members are compelled to submit academic dishonesty reports to our office. And my job is to ensure that students have due process and they have their ability to face those allegations or they may accept those allegations. So that's my responsibility, is to make sure that they have those due process systems in place.
Yeah, and just a quick follow-up. So it's all the undergraduate students. Would you happen to know how many undergraduate students are there at MSU?
I would say about 40,000.
Just a few. Just a few. That's awesome. All right, so we're asking everyone a question, which I like. So you can take this however you want. You can, define it both ways. You can say, hey, this is how MSU defines it. This is how I define it. If there's alignment, if there's not, whatever. So the question is, how do you define academic integrity?
Yeah, I think it's a challenging phrase. I'm sure everyone says that, but academic integrity to me is ensuring that you are doing your work. Your coursework is yours, and that you are validating what you've learned. It's basically demonstration that you have done the academic coursework that's been required of you. That is what academic integrity is all about to me. And then, of course, we use that phrase for academic misconduct, because on the flip side of it is, if you haven't done that, if you have not demonstrated your ability of what you've done or your coursework or your research, that is academic misconduct, a violation of academic integrity.
I think that's a very clean definition. I think, student doing their own work, that's amazing. I think, obviously, we've been talking a lot about AI on this mini series, of course, but I think I maybe just want to extend it out a little bit to just tools in general. We all, are a product of both our own original thoughts and our own original work as well as tools. And, part of higher ed is trying to get students comfortable with using these tools, right? So obviously tools can be used in the learning process. They can be super helpful, super valuable, but also tools can be used to kind of, violate the learning process as well. So kind of at MSU, how does your office see the line between good tool use and bad tool use?
Sure. I think it shifts for each field, right? We have 13 colleges at Michigan State, so it's different focus areas, like the College of Nursing, the Business College, the College of Engineering. All of those are going to define that line differently based on how they view the tool that we're talking about, such as AI use. And I know that, for example, with computer science, there's a real need for the use of generative AI, and there's a good use for it. And how can students be taught how to use it and still demonstrate that they're learning about the use of it and how to demonstrate their own knowledge set of their learning. So I feel like I'm going in a circle there, but again, it at MSU, it is defined based on the college, based on the instructors, on how they view academic integrity, or not academic integrity, but that line of when to use the tool, when not to use it, as defined by their professions or their programs.
Yeah, it totally makes sense. So, obviously, like I think when a lot of students come to you, being accused of these allegations, like I'm sure there's a lot of misunderstandings about like, student says like, okay, like, I thought this tool use was acceptable, but maybe I used it in the wrong way. Like, do you see a lot of like what are the kind of common misunderstandings like around tools that you typically see with your cases?
Sure. Yeah, I would totally agree with that. There is that misconception or misunderstanding, or, a typical student may have 4 to 5 different courses they're taking, and 4 to 5 different faculty members may have their own perspectives about those tool use and stuff. So sometimes we do see that. We see faculty member may submit an ADR, I call it ADR, academic dishonesty report, and that may throw the student for a loop, and they may be confused about it. And really, our system, though, of the due process really does walk the student. So let's say that a report was submitted, then we encourage the student, if you feel this is an error, please do work with your instructor, and if it was a mistake, certainly the incident report can be removed. It can be a learning experience. So really, we look at that. We try to help the student to walk through that with their faculty member to kind of make sure they understand what was going on. But I would say most of the time it's pretty clear. It's pretty well laid out and expected. And many of our faculty members are very clear in their communication with the students, both in writing and verbally. So as far as what can be used, what can't be used, what is the final product supposed to look like?
Yeah, for sure. So in your opinion, kind of most of the stuff that reaches your desk is not just like a minor misunderstanding. Most of that stuff is kind of handled at the faculty level.
Yes, that's correct. That's correct. It's handled on the faculty level, and then when it comes to our desk or any issues that we need to manage, it's more of it was egregious or higher level of offense, if you will.
Got it. Okay, understood. Yeah, I mean, you use that phrase like due process a lot, and I really like that because it's like it's all about kind of fairness, right? And I think we owe that to our students. And so, could you just like walk us through a little bit about just what that due process looks like from beginning to end?
Sure. Yeah. Due process. And I'm not a lawyer. I don't get paid like a lawyer. I don't play one on TV. So I just want to say it out there.
It is kind of scary sounding.
But I know enough to be dangerous, so I'll say that. But due process really, and this is fundamental. It is about fundamental fairness, like you said, Bradley. It is about, making sure that students have access to their education. If you really think about it, it is you are coming to the university for access to education, for learning, and it can't be taken away from them without a due process, without the opportunity to contest it, to challenge it. So from beginning to end, and there's great history to the due process system since the civil rights era. So I really encourage, if anyone is unaware or aware of it, but due process really comes from Dixon versus Alabama. It's a court process. And again, I'm not a lawyer, so I'm not going to say but that is a really fascinating subtopic, if you will, for you all to explore. But with the due process, students have the right to know what's being presented. Just like anyone else, when you go to court, you're given a ticket, you're you're accused of something. You have a right to know what you're being accused of, and you have a right to know which law or policy is being violated, allegedly. And so with that due process, when we get a report for academic misconduct, we send the report to the student so they could see what they're being accused of and what specific policies are being violated. And so that way they're aware of, okay, well, that matches this, and they understand what's in front of them. Now, with that due process, then they have a right to face their accuser. And that is also part of the criminal court system. Again, I want to also be very clear, and I'm passionate about this, but it's very clear about criminal justice system and the academic integrity process or the student conduct process are not the same. There are a lot of parallels, but the biggest difference is the preponderance of the evidence standard, which is our standard of proof that is needed for this process. In the court system, we know what that is, right? Which is beyond reasonable doubt. And so sometimes a lot of, if people watch Law and Order or whatnot, they're like, well, where's the proof? Where are the fingerprints? Where's the video evidence that I cheated on this test? There's a reasonable standard that we use, and that, again, with that preponderance of the evidence, students have to know, hey, this is the standard of proof we have. This is the report. This is the policy. You can face your accuser. We can have a hearing, and you have the right to be heard by your peers. So we do have hearing boards of faculty and students on the board. Or you can have an administrative meeting and you just meet with me. It's that simple. So they have a right to do that. And then they also have a right to an appeal. So that's what due process looks like. When I meet with a student, and I bet I'll ask you both, what percentage of our students do you think at MSU say, I accept responsibility, I did do this?
I think Tricia from UCSD said it was about 70%, and then it was about 60% after AI. So curious, like if it's similar for you.
Yeah, it's I would say, and we do a lot with restorative justice, and that's a whole nother ball game I could get into. The way we phrase our questions when we meet with students, and Tricia, I absolutely adore her, and I love those numbers. I think that's spot on. We are closer to, I would say, 85, 90% accept responsibility at MSU. Yeah. So
why do you
I
think
love
it's so
that.
high?
Maybe it's a Midwestern value. I don't know what you want to say. It could be it. Again, I think a lot of it has to do with the restorative justice questions we ask, because we do spend a lot of, and I don't know specifically how Tricia does her questions, but when we meet with students, it's very much we want to set them up for success. We don't want them to feel like we are on your side. We are very much supporting you. If you believe this is true, this is what happens. These are the outcomes. We lay it all out. And we give them the opportunity to kind of talk through stuff. Nothing's on record. It is a very informal upfront. And then with the restorative justice questions of, what happened? Just can you see why this a professor might feel that this is a violation or not? And so we just kind of talk through that. And I feel like that might be a reason why we get such a high turnover rate. Not saying that Tricia done it. I'm not saying that. So.
Well, I think like it's kind of interesting because I think, Tricia in her book goes into all this detail. Excellent book, by the way, Opposite of Cheating by Tricia and David. Highly encourage our listeners to check it out. But they kind of go a lot into the reasons that students might either admit or not. And like I think one of the big things is just fear of consequences, right?
Yes.
So like when you kind of present the allegations to the student, like how do you present the potential consequences right up front? Like, and kind
Absolutely.
of say like, hey, look, like, we're going to show you mercy if you admit to this, then we can just move forward and here's what's going to happen.
Yep. Yes, we do. We lay it out. We talk about here are the different situations, the different outcomes. And at MSU, we have a really great policy. And I would say this is probably another reason why students, we have such a high number, is at MSU, if it's not an egregious case, if it's just a standard incident, a student will receive a report. They will be required to take an intervention course, which I know Tricia talks about too, as a online tutorial about academic misconduct. If that's their only case and they have no other issues by the time they graduate, that report is deleted. It is expunged from their record. So I think that makes it a low stakes, if you will, that outcome, and it gives them the chance to say, okay, I really can take a look at this. I can learn from this. I can grow from this. And so I think that's why I would say maybe most students will just say, I just want to be done with this. And maybe that's another thing too, right? Okay, so we had the low stakes, but then we also have the, I just want to be done with this. I don't like accountability. Please just get this away from me. I'll do what you want. And generally that's what the that online tutorial helps them be done with it, if you will.
For sure. And so if they choose to contest it rather than just kind of admit it, then do the consequences get worse?
No, they will not get worse.
That's very
know
empathetic. Yeah.
Right. I do get that question often, but no, it does not get worse. It gives them a chance to contest it, exercise their due process rights, but it does not get worse. They know what the outcome will be if it is found in their favor or not in their favor.
That's cool. And I mean, I think that, that's a testament to the students, wanting to learn and kind of move past it. And, because they could just like keep fighting it and like, be like, oh my God, like, if there's no difference in consequences, I might as well try and contest it. But the fact that 90% still say, okay, like, I just want to move past this and like, I'm willing to move forward. Like, I think maybe shows that, they are kind of, willing to, in the big picture view, at least they're wanting to do the right thing, which is really encouraging.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, and one thing I wanted to jump in on, Jake, is that I might be wrong here, but I think I read somewhere that MSU has yet to create a policy on AI and AI usage. Is that correct? Or what are you guys doing at MSU for, AI usage for both on the student side and the faculty side? What's going on?
Yeah. Right now, I think, like I would argue, like most of our institutions, it's still a guidance at this point. And I am I'm not a lawyer, nor am I a university spokesperson. So I will just say it is still just guidance at this point.
Yeah.
Most of our policies in place as far as student behavior and conduct and their research, it still falls under ethical guidelines. It still falls under what is expected of good academic integrity. For example, you can't use someone else's work as your own, right? And that you can't use tools that are unapproved by faculty members. So, for example, right, you take a test and your professor said it has to be all handwritten. I mean, I don't know if that's from high school days, but you have to show your work and those kind of things, and you end up using your calculator or your phone during the exam. I mean, those kind of things. So AI fits into all that as well, an unapproved resource or things like that. So generally, we don't need to replace those policies. And right now, we just have the guidance in place. Again, I'm not the official university spokesperson, so I'm not going to be like, this is exactly what MSU is doing.
Yeah, I love the way you keep saying, I am not a lawyer. I love it. Cover yourself. I love that. But before I pass it back to Bradley, one last question for me, before I pass it to him, is I keep hearing about faculty saying that they're upset, that they feel like they have to keep being police officers, like they're policing these students. Are you hearing that from your side? If so, like, what are the conversations like? What's going on from the faculty side?
Yeah, I mean, it's definitely a challenge. I'm hearing it, and I would say rightfully so. I feel like, faculty, teachers, I mean, we could just say this in the education system. It just has become this ongoing, like, unfunded mandate to do many, many things with very few tools or resources. And I think it is a challenge, right? And I think AI is really just thrown faculty for a loop of how do we you spend time researching and using this tool and then teaching our students how to use it. So I think that's a big piece of it. I think being the police piece of it, though, that is part of it, though. As a teacher, as an educator, your job, and I'm not faulting faculty for feeling this way, as far as running out of time or being a police officer, but if you are designing assessment to truly understand whether or not your students are learning, it should take care of itself in a way, that you are able to see whether or not student cheated or took a shortcut on said assessment of their learning. You shouldn't have to be a cop or a police officer managing that. You should hold them accountable, though. You should say to a student, hey, you didn't do the learning, because that's your job. That's their own integrity. And that's something that I've talked with a lot of faculty about. And it's really been good conversations. It's like, it is your integrity. It is your responsibility as a professional from computer science or from business to be supporting students going into that field by having high standards. And most faculty that I talk to are really in line with that. And it is part of that expectation of our faculty members.
Right, absolutely. And I think that's been one of the main themes of this mini series that we've been doing, that like academic integrity is here to help students. Like it's academic integrity, like in enforcing academic integrity in the classroom. You think that like, by actually holding students accountable, that like, oh, like, a lot of students are like, oh, these professors are ruining my future. Like this academic integrity office is ruining my career. But really, like, the whole point of these institutions existing is to help students move forward and, um, turn the cheating moment into a teaching moment, really.
Right. We're not just a degree publishing institution. We actually want it to mean something. We actually want you, when you graduate, to say, hey, I actually know how to work as an open heart surgeon, and I actually know what I'm doing when I design bridges, and I will know what I'm doing and keeping people safe and alive and all that stuff. I mean, it is important.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Okay.
maybe shift it. Yeah, go ahead, Alvin.
No, I was going to say, I want to go back to something that I've been hearing over and over and talking and reading a lot more about what's going on in the world of academic integrity. Jake, what do you think is happening between the faculty and the students? Once a faculty is seeing, okay, this is obviously AI usage, they're kind of using all their resources, whether it's AI detection software or it's just eyeing it, where it's past experience with the student. They're using all their resources and they're saying, this is definitely AI. Do you think there's that moment where the faculty's like, should I bring this up? I think that they're thinking like, should I bring this up? Should I just talk to the student? Should I just push this right on up to Jake's office? I mean, what do you think is happening when the faculty are seeing this come across? They're probably seeing it a lot more obviously now than usual than before. And what do you think is going on through there? Have you talked to faculty about that moment and what they're thinking about, what they want to do next?
Yeah, I work with so many faculty members that struggle with that. What do I do? There's fear, right? There's a litigious fear of, wait a second, am I ruining someone's life? Oh, they legit care about that.
Yeah.
And then there's a concern of, well, is this tool, how do I know for sure?
Yeah.
How do I make sure? And I really think I think that makes you human, right? That you're worried about it. You want to make sure that when you do submit something, you actually are approaching it correctly. So we do encourage faculty to talk with students first, and again, with our 90% threshold, most of them we're going to say, yeah, crap, I didn't realize it, or I shouldn't have, or things like that. And the faculty member can say, hey, if it's your first, let this be learning. This is how we still submit the report, but it's tracked by Jake and his office. Make sure nothing else is occurring in the future, but just making sure that you learn from it and grow from it. And that's really typically what I've seen is that, but when faculty reach out, they're most concerned about that litigious piece of it. Are they going to get sued? Are they going to have to deal with their supervisors? They want to make sure that they have the support of the university. And that's one thing that I can always say is this is the policy. This is how it's laid out. What I can see, this seems legit. And I would talk to the student first, those kind of things. And we do that.
I mean, it's hard. I mean, even beyond like the fear of, falsely accusing somebody or, the legal action, like it's also just an uncomfortable conversation to have, right? Like, it's scary. Like most people are non-confrontational by nature. So to kind of bring this out into the open, like how do you kind of teach faculty to approach these conversations?
Yeah, really, I personally enjoy conflict because conflict is about growth. Yeah, I mean, I really do think it's an opportunity to grow. It is an opportunity to learn. It is we don't see change unless there's an actual combustion.
Fair point.
That's a good point.
And you have to work at it, and that in and of itself is conflict, right? Because sometimes our natural state is to be at rest, and we actually have to do something. So to answer your question, though, is really try to coach faculty members or people in general, because students on the flip side, if
Right.
they're like, this didn't happen, how do I talk to my faculty member about it? So it really, sometimes I feel like I'm just parenting, with faculty and students, just saying, and then when their parents get involved, it is a whole hot mess sometimes. But really try to make sure that both sides are using I statements, as simple as that sounds, but you don't go in just saying you did this, but you can at least say, this is what I've seen. This is how I'm viewing this. And I believe that this is why I will be submitting this report. Do you have anything you want to say about that? And those kind of things. You really just, you go in with an open mind, making sure that you're not accusing. You are accusing, but again, there's a gentle way to do that, I guess, if you will. I would also say, I think it really is a matter of just going in with an open mind of hearing the other side, and making sure that you have your information laid out. I also encourage, especially students, to write out what they want to say. Sometimes they get flustered when they're meeting with someone that is a PhD, is smart and brilliant, and they feel like they're not able to share what they think. And we do have resources on campus like our ombudsperson's office, our student rights advocate's office that can also support the students through those type of conversations. So
it's interesting that I think in having these conversations, we use so much language from like the world of therapy too. It's like, like in therapy, we try and, talk about things that are deeply uncomfortable, potentially traumatic, like full of conflict. And it's just like, how do we get people to like kind of put down their defenses, and like just kind of really kind of like get into it and like be there from an unbiased, kind of neutral perspective rather than it being this emotionally heightened moment of conflict.
When you figured that out, please write a book and we'll go from there.
Well, it's all about just like, how do you get people to talk about things that are uncomfortable, right? Like,
yeah. And there's always a fear of loss,
yes,
not to get psychological on that. And I'm not paid to be a counselor, so I want to say that too.
Not a therapist, not a lawyer. God,
I'm none of those things. I'm just a guy. But really, it is a fear of loss. It's a fear of losing face. It's a fear of retribution, consequence, and fear does that. So how do you, as a person going into a conflict, help de-escalate the fear before you have the conversation? What can you as a human do that? And I think that works with relationships, at home or anywhere. You just take away the fear.
Very cool. So academic integrity work, it's a mix of both criminal justice and therapy.
Oh my gosh.
That's to both worlds.
I know. I would definitely agree with that. I really do think it's a combination of both of those, and being a teacher. So 3, education. So
yeah.
3 things that most people wouldn't think would go together, but here we are.
Here we are.
Well, this has been a fantastic conversation. So before I ask you my final 2, Bradley, I'm going to see if you have one more question for Jake.
I I guess, yeah, maybe kind of going back to the evidence piece a little bit. Like, I think maybe the one way that AI is kind of different, cheating's not new, but AI is. But maybe one way that AI is a little different is that, in our work with AI detection, we talk so much about like, you know, you know that something is AI from like the combination of many, many weak signals. Like it's the fact that it's not using the word tapestry or delve, but it's the fact that, the whole essay is comprised of like kind of those isms, right? And so like, with the evidence being so kind of weak and aggregate, like how does that kind of change the standard, or like kind of like how does that, I guess, like, yeah, like kind of does that, yeah, what is kind of the standard that you guys use for evidence in kind of these kind of more messy AI cases?
Yeah, I would say definitely. I mean, with the detectors, they are as reliable as they can be, as possible. So but I always will say the AI detector is the start. It is that metal detector, if you will. And then when you pull it out, you're going to figure out whether or not it's a bottle cap or if it's jewelry, and so that's kind of the way to look at it. And so I would argue the biggest evidence is any of the students' previous work. I think that's the big, you can compare and contrast and be like, there's absolutely no way you're writing like a PhD student and as a first year student, that just doesn't jive if you look at that. And then really what I've seen lately has just been the false resources. That alone is so easy to detect, to
Like
be like,
citations?
yeah, the
Oh, I
citations
see.
are like,
Yeah.
that doesn't exist. Where's that resource? And they're like, well, I found it in the library. I'm like, where? Show me. I'm right here. So I think that's the biggest thing that's been pinging right now, last couple months, years even. So I would say that's still the biggest piece of it. But I would also, it really is as simple as saying, okay, you wrote this. What did you mean by that? And it is amazing, because if you learn, and again, this goes back to assessing learning. If you learn this information, you're not going to have a problem saying, well, this is what I was really thinking.
Yep.
And being able to put it in other words, in new words or different words. And so I think that's been the big challenge. The detector can be a great way to at least pull it out. And then, but yes, all faculty members and our office, when we're talking with students, we're not relying 100% on the detection
Right.
tools,
But
but
nobody should. Yeah.
nobody should. Same
Yeah.
thing is true for Turnitin.com resources. The Turnitin, when it used to be that someone miscited a resource, and it's just same thing is true. It's just pings it for you, and then you should be able to dig in further and ask the student more information or to look at their old writing.
Right. And like asking the student about it, like, whether they used AI or not, that's more of the proxy. Like the actual thing is like, is this original work, right? Like, and that's
Right.
not something any AI detector can do because it can't get behind the student's intent, authenticity, process, et cetera. It's like when you talk to the student, you're trying to assess, whether or not like they actually achieve the learning outcome, which is the actual thing that you care about at the end of the day.
And then we go back to the fundamentals of education. We want you to learn. We want you to grow and to actually obtain information and to be able to wrestle with it and work with it and produce something. And I think really, especially with the pandemic, even prior, sometimes our K through 12 system just kind of produces students to uh, crank out assignments or projects and hope that they get a good grade. Like they're only going for that A plus. And I, as an educator, just want students to learn. I don't care if it takes you, weeks to wrestle with this. You tell me that you are writing a masterpiece and you need more time. Great, I'll give it to you. I expect a masterpiece, but it just needs to be that you are doing it. You're doing the learning and you're wrestling with this, and you're not just trying to crank out a paper to meet a deadline.
Yeah, absolutely. Well said, Jake. We're last two questions for you. So, did we miss anything during the conversation that you wanted to talk about? Anything you want to got coming up for yourself, for the school, for the office? Anything you want to talk about? And second part of that question is, what do you see as the future of academic integrity?
All right. Thank you. These are good ones to leave me with. I feel like I need a new cup of coffee or something here. But I would say, really, we got some really cool things going on with academic integrity. I do think that there's a lot of focus on AI and how AI can be used effectively. And so we're doing a lot on campus where we're working with students to kind of, I guess, get a sense from them of what they think is appropriate use, because we're kind of flipping the question to them. How do you feel about instructors using AI? How does that look? That's still informal at this point. I don't have a research proposal or anything like that, but that is something that I think we're going to be digging into. I would also say with academic integrity, we do have I like to think our intervention course that we have with students, we call it Scholarly Spartans. We revised that, and I use student feedback, and we keep working with students to how do we personalize this for students that have been found responsible for academic integrity, and I ask them what are ways for you to learn from this, and this course really has been revamped over the years. We have different modules, different tutorials. My favorite one is, how do you see academic integrity in society? So what are some of the issues that have come up? And really it's and you just look to Washington, D.C. to see if there's an integrity problem. Like I'm not saying any sides or anything like that, but just there's an issue. You can look at I even think of the Johnny Depp and what's her name?
Amber Heard. Yeah.
Amber Heard. That whole fiasco. I mean, that was all about cheating and lying and scandals, and it is everywhere. You look at sports, you look at, are either of you Patriots fans?
Oh my God, yes I am, please.
Oh, so look at this then.
I'm not, so feel free to go hard.
Yes.
Don't hold back.
Yeah. So I mean, that's a mic drop right there. I that makes me happy. So, but it's easy to see it everywhere. So how do you apply cheating on an exam to what's out there in society and how we do view integrity and how do we view ethics? And so I think that's some really cool stuff that we've been doing at MSU with our intervention and our work with students. So that's been great.
Awesome. So this has been such a fun and great and interesting conversation. Well, you have something else you want to say?
Yes, your second question. I was trying to remember.
The future of academic integrity.
I think you already covered a lot of it.
Yeah, that was the
anything
one
else about the future.
about.
We're happy to hypothesize.
I tend to go in circles and I try to bring it back. But anyways, no, I think the future of AI, academic integrity. See, that's the other problem, right? We have two AIs. We have artificial intelligence and academic integrity. Hopefully people on the panel have been consistent with you all, but I think that is the challenge. I think in the future is, how do we work with artificial intelligence? How do we I don't want to say stay ahead of the curve, but how do we make sure that even when we open the doors or continue to use AI, that our students are still learning the actual content so that the human is still superior, if that makes sense. Mm-hmm. That I really do think artificial intelligence can raise our learning in general, our human intelligence. So how do we continue to raise the human intelligence with the use of artificial intelligence and not use it as a crutch and then therefore hurting us? And I think having academic integrity is fundamental to that, because it kind of serves as that curb to make sure that we are still funneling students to greater heights and learning more. So
yeah,
that's how I see it in the future.
Yeah, I mean, I think AI just, is going to allow people in general to just do more things, and that's do more good things, do more bad things, like
Mm,
just overall just do more.
Yep.
And I think, yeah, adapting to that new world, I think we're all still figuring it out.
Yeah. Yep.
absolutely. Well, again, Jake, this has been fun conversation, very interesting, engaging, and I really appreciate your time. And first, I want to outro my co-host with the most, Bradley Emmy, CTO at Pangram Labs. Thank you, as always, Bradley.
Oh, thank you so much for having me, Alvin. Always a great time.
Absolutely. And let's outro our guest. He is Jake Kasper. He is the Assistant Director for the Office of Student Support and Accountability at Michigan State University. Jake, thanks so much for being here with us.
Thank you both for a great time. I hope you have a great day.
Thanks, Jake. So with that, ladies and gentlemen, you've just ed up.
Thank you for listening. This episode is part of our Academic Integrity series, sponsored by Pangram Labs, the world's leading AI detection technology. Try it out at pangram.com. That's PANGRAM.com.